I used to be a fire and brimstone kind of gal, a little bit religious, not so much anymore. But what I will say, what we're going to talk about today really did get to me. Are we really moving into a future where bum bum ba-dum is requiring a software update and not a lifelong commitment? Is the trip down the altar going to have a charging station? Are AI sex robots taking over?
Of course not. We think Netflix and chill is just about temperature settings.
Welcome to the Life in Red podcast. This is a way of life that emphasizes positive sexuality, self-love, and confidence. On this journey, red is now your new color. Be courageous. Be passionate. Be sexy. And never stop living your best red life. So now I have one question for you. Are you ready to live your life in red? To join us on this journey, like and subscribe below. Welcome to the Life in Red podcast. This is Brittany, and today we are going to talk about digisexuality. And I'm sure if you're like me, when you hear digisexuality, isn't that fun? What is that? What is it? You know, the topic of AI is huge right now. People are scared. And now we're talking about robot sex. How exciting. So I had to ask my little robot friend, ChatGPT, what is digisexuality? And I think even he blushed, and I did say he. So what I'm reading here, and I'm a little bit scared myself. I don't want to be replaced, by a robot. It's hard enough to keep up with the Kardashians. Am I going to have to keep up with this perfect robot? So it was a little bit scary for me. I have a history, fire and brimstone, religious background. And so I've worked really hard to become open-minded. And I knew that this was even challenging me. And as I'm doing research, my little ChatGPT friend's telling me there's 3 waves in digisexuality. And I'm just like, I'm clueless. I'm imagining a little robot riding a little wave. 1, 2, 3, I'll be back. What is this? So I knew it was important. I had to find someone who knew what they were talking about. And I found one of the originators of the term digisexuality. You are going to be one of the first people out there to hear all about it on this podcast today. Dr. Markie Twist, here we go. Welcome to the Life in Red podcast. I am Brittany, your host, and today we are joined by Dr. Markie Twist. Welcome, welcome. And Dr. Markie Twist is the author of The Internet Family. She is also the therapist and educator on sexuality. And on top of this, she also has coined the term digisexuality. Welcome, Dr. Twist.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Brittany. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah. Love the curtains. Love the curtains.
Well, when in Vegas.
Yeah. Don't tell anybody. That's it. That's the thing. Yeah. Well, I'm excited to have you on today. And it was a pleasure in looking up everything you've done. It was so hard to condense it. You're just a woman, a jack of all trades, a huge supporter of the LGBTQ community. I mean, it's amazing what you're doing. And when I saw digisexuality, my cognitive dissonance started heating up, and I was like, I need her. I got to talk to her and challenge myself and the world. I can't wait to hear more about this with you. So tell us about you.
I am originally from a small village in Alaska, which is going to be important to this conversation in digisexuality. It's a village on the road system. Those of you that can see stuff, like it's, if you get out your map of Alaska, it's near the center of it, but it's on the road system 70 miles north of Anchorage. It was really isolated. There's more moose than people. And I was a queer youth. I identify as bisexual and androgynous and kinky and polyamorous and not as a digisexual, oddly enough. But growing up where I did, in the time I did, because I'm also Gen X. And so technology, from my point of view, in Alaska is, a godsend. Like it's survival. You depend on it. If we had had more of it when I was a young person, like actual internet and the ability to connect with other queer youth or even just humans that aren't moose, it probably would have been, even more life-changing for me, I think, and affirming as a young person. So that's kind of my base relationship with technology. Is it's one of like embracing technology as a tool, rather than as necessarily like a source of wanting all your comfort, but also like being completely technophobic.
Right. It was for survival. Like it wasn't like
exactly.
us, it's pleasure, but for you starting out, you needed it. And then, and
That's right.
I can't imagine being a queer youth. It's like having that access like people do now. It can be lonely and isolating, and you had to kind of figure out a lot on your own, and just I commend you for that. That's especially as a Gen Xer. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like back then it was phone.
Yeah. Dial.
Yeah. And the landline. Yes, it was. Yeah.
Hey.
My parents got me my own landline.
Yeah.
Which was very exciting. But even just that, but if we had had what we have now, and certainly if we had had, as we get into talking today, like chat GPT and like just chat-based dating connectivity or robots or dolls, if we'd had any of that, it would be definitely less lonely. And it's definitely a survival tool there. So that just personally kind of situates this conversation. Yeah. And then of course, professionally, in 2017, Dr. Neil MacArthur, he's a sexual ethicist and moral philosopher, based out of the University of Manitoba. He and I wrote a piece in the Journal of Sexual and Relationship Therapy and coined the term digisexuality. And I don't identify that way. However, many people, it's a growing group of people as the technology grows and changes and we grow and change individually and societally, then more people are starting to have that kind of identity and that kind of sexual interaction. Yeah.
Well, and that's going to segue me into what I wanted to talk to you about a little bit, is because my background, I come from, and we've talked about this initially, I come from very conservative Pentecostal Church of God, praise hallelujah background. Don't think it, don't say it, you're going to burn in hell. So I've come a long way, but a lot of sexual shame, a lot of deconditioning. And so when I was reading into digisexuality, it challenged me, because human connection has been something I struggled with and I worked so hard to feel safe in. And then I was like, I started having judgments immediately. I'm just going to be real. I had judgments of are people afraid to connect to other humans? And is this inhibiting this connection? All the stereotypical things I'm sure the other side, since we're in duality, is saying. And then I was like, I need to talk to her, because I want to be challenged in this cognitive dissonance to shut up. And so beliefs, I mean, it's nuts
how we want to be right so bad. And so I'd love to hear if there's people out there that are like, you know, it's their beliefs are being challenged. I mean, this podcast is about sexuality. It's challenging the social norms. The first wave, second wave, third wave that you'll end up talking about later on in digisexuality is challenging me. And I would love to hear like your expert opinion on beliefs and all that, how it affects our sexuality.
I think that's such a key, first of all, like self-reflection on your part, right? Like that's awareness is the first step. Like you have to be aware, like, oh, this is a thing and I'm having feelings about it.
Right.
So first, I think that's to be commended already.
Thank you.
Right? Because some people don't even want to even acknowledge it and then go to even that step because their technophobia is so high maybe that they can't even, you know. And it isn't just around sexuality that people are afraid of technology. Technophobia has been around for a very long time. Like,
I'll be back.
Right? I mean, the moment that, and it's not just around sex. Like, people are worried about losing their jobs, right? Like, they're worried about Terminator happening, and they're worried about, like, I mean, the people are scared about technology, and they've been scared of technology for a long time. You know, when Wollstonecraft, Mary Shelley Wollstonecraft wrote Frankenstein, it really was the story of a reaction societally against medicine and technology and science.
Yes.
And so this is old, right? Your feeling is old. Having said that, there are certain people where they're even more sensitive and worried, right? And those are people that do tend to come from more religious upbringings. And I've shared with you and others, you know, I did not come from a very religious upbringing.
Right.
It was very much, there's many paths to belief and no paths.
So cool.
Will expose you to anything you want to learn about and, you know, and make choices, right?
Right.
But even when Neil came to me a decade ago and said, hey, let's talk about robot sex, because I was already studying technology and relationships. I was like, what? And it was that immediate sort of like, yuck, right? We're taught in the kink community not to yuck anybody's yum.
Right.
But it definitely is a gut reaction, even by like people not raised in more religious upbringings.
That makes me feel better. That I was trying to diagnose it. My Virgo rear end is trying to like, what is this?
No, I don't think it's weird. And that's the other reason is it's not just the technophobia. It's the erotocentrism, which is that core feeling that what I like sexually is the most right.
Right.
Me as an individual, it's more right than anybody else. And so therefore, when you mix that feeling, which everyone has, literally everyone, and the majority of people feel like the most right sex is having sex with a human or an organic partner.
Right.
Just as a foundation, most people feel that way. Having said that, even when vibrators came out, like if you go back and read the media or listen to news.
Was it a thing?
You know. Oh, yeah. Or listen to radio interviews like what we're doing back then, right? People freaked and they were afraid that women would stop marrying men. They were afraid that they would not have children. So this has been around since beginning when we get into first wave, which that's first wave vibrators. Like people have been afraid, and it's that technophobia mixed with erotocentrism that brings about what I call digisexual phobia. It's just being so afraid at your core of like, oh my God, we're going to do what? There's technology and people, and that's not what I do. Even though I would argue almost everybody in the modern world engages in first wave digisexuality.
Yeah. I mean, my Rose is my girl. And, you know, just saying, I will say that. But I mean, the thing is this is spot on. And I think it's so good for people to have these things, even the conservative point of view, to hear like you have a rose plugged up next to your bed. Digi, girl, you be digiing. And so like, did that make you not want your man? And so like, maybe that can help some of the fears. Like we thought that Y2K, right? AOL, all these things were like, oh no, the world's going to end. It's like, no, you can connect to your friend who moved across the country and still connect. It's a beautiful thing. So we should maybe find comfort in patterns, possibly.
Right. Exactly, Brittany. And the thing of it is one of the things as a Gen Xer, I say to the clients and the students I work with and other educators and people in media, is I'm like, what's the offline equivalent of that? It isn't like, yes, we have this technology and that's new, but not really.
Right. I mean, some people may want the sex robot, but for whatever, we'll go down this road, but the emotional reason that they need that still doesn't mean that they don't want human connection. It's not a this or that box, which I tend to be black or white. Even my outfit, this is how I think.
I love your outfit.
Thanks.
I'm wearing the digisexual rights or human
Check this
rights
out,
shirt.
y'all.
Yes. Yeah. It's a whole thing.
Look at her necklace. I mean, she is digied out.
And the hair clip, which I always think is on the other side.
Man, that's digi sexy. Digi sexy.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. It's technosexual wear.
Technosexual. That's right. Love it. You told me that. Well, so that's
Very
good.
black and white about it.
Yes. And that is for our survival mode. It's black or white, put it in a box. Now I can go about my day with certainty. So with digisexuality, I'd like to go into, all right, my beliefs are being challenged. I'm a viewer watching this. Okay. But I'm open-minded. I'm here today for a reason. I'm hearing this. I know they're on the edge of their seat. What is it? And what is this? What is this new thing? And they have one eye open. They're like, I don't want to believe it. It's probably another blah, blah, blah. What is it? What is digisexuality?
It's very simple. The way that digisexuality is defined is a sexual experience that depends on the use of advanced technology. That's it. So that includes vibrators. That includes, all those first wave things. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, exactly. Raise the hand. So there's Neil and I, when we first talked about it, we talked about two waves of digisexuality. And the first wave is what we call a mediating technology wave, where all the technology does is just allow for enhanced or new forms of partners or individual sexual activity, right? So it's just mediating the sexual activity that people are already doing with other people or themselves.
First wave. Tech tools. This is like the appetizer before the main course of digital delight. It's all about introducing gadgets into the bedroom. Think vibrating toys or trying out online platforms for sexual exploration. Who knew technology could be so hands-on, right?
So it counts vibrators, like sexting. If you've ever sent someone just a hot little, picture of you with just lingerie on even, or maybe you've watched, some online porn.
Like Live Jasmine, for instance, great site. So you're telling me this would be more first wave. Mm-hmm. All right.
Yes. So it's designed to mediate communication with other humans, right? But it's in a sexual way. Okay. And almost everyone at this point, if you have any modern technology, which I know there are accessibility issues in different places in this country and around the world, but if you have it, you've done this. Okay. This is not shocking anymore. However, when we first started talking about this, even, 6-7 years ago, there were people that hadn't, right? But when we get into the second wave, then we're actually talking about immersive technology.
Okay.
So here it no longer is really about mediating the relationship of the technology between people. It's more about the relationship of the human, the organic person,
Right.
with the technology itself.
Second wave. Digital identities are trying out virtual reality porn. Now we're getting into the realm of digital dress up. Imagine creating your alter ego in the virtual world. The possibilities are endless. It's like playing a sexy game of who am I online, but with a lot more spice. Okay.
So the technology is so much more immersive in the second wave that this is where people might reach a point where they're like, oh, I don't need human interaction anymore to be sexually satisfied or happy.
Right.
And so this includes things like AI, which I want to be clear here, we don't have like Terminator level AI or, conscious AI. Technology is not aware of itself. Like everybody can relax. We're not there yet. This is machine learning AI. It's not that great.
Yeah.
Other people have called it, like, I think it was Noam Chomsky who wrote about it and said, this is just plagiarism software. And I think that's probably the best way to think about where we are with AI right now. But this also includes like VR sex. And this also includes like sex with robots, right? So when we get to this level, the second wave, most people haven't done that.
Right.
And some of that is because of their own boundaries. Like it doesn't feel like a good, sexual fit for them.
Or they may want more
whatever.
sensory. Some people want
Yes.
less sensory. Some people want more. And I want to say
Exactly.
something to something you just said. I found fascinating.
please.
You said about how it's like plagiarized, like learning,
Plagiarism software.
Plagiarism software. I would challenge people on this, and that we are too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We are literally learning and influenced from the moment we're born to believe what we believe. So are we not ourselves? We don't have to do this. Sorry. But this is,
But I'm
we
with
are
you.
plagiarism. You know what I'm
it's
saying?
A great question. Yeah. I mean, that's actually an age-old philosophical argument,
Right.
that whether you're born sort of like with nothing,
Right.
are you a blank slate?
Right.
Like I think the term is tabula rasa, or are you born with like already information, right?
Yeah.
And so this is like, it is an interesting like philosophical thought, right? Like
Yeah.
the difference is we're conscious of it.
Yes.
Either way.
Right.
And the tech is not yet.
Not yet.
The tech is not yet. So we're in this second wave and many people aren't engaged at that level. When people often, when they meet, like they get into second wave tech, if they can afford it, a lot of it is affordability and accessibility.
Right.
It's still pretty expensive. Okay. But when they get into this, many of them identify then as either robosexuals if their partners are specific robots, or digisexual if their partner is this more broad second wave. And so digisexual is a person whose preferred form of sexual experience and relating is via immersive technologies, which need not involve a human partner. Okay. And there are lots of reasons for this, right? Like people who experience disabilities, people who are homebound, people who are aging, people who might be queer in certain ways. Historically, women and queer folks have used more first wave technology than anybody else.
Right. Because it's safer and you don't have to worry about the emotional repercussions of what could happen.
But in second wave so far, it's mainly been men, specifically white men who have money.
Yeah. Well,
see,
we've seen this before. But I'm glad. It's one of those things. I think where I'm feeling the belief in me right now. What it is is this going to replace me? And it keeps coming up. I'm just noticing it, and I'm like, no. Yeah. Did AOL replace someone wanting to go on a date with you? Like it's
exactly
a sexual experience. you know?
Exactly. And here's the thing, Brittany, the majority of people probably won't be digisexual, or as digisexual people who are in the community will say, they won't have interest in synthetic partners.
Right, right.
But there's going to be some people who do,
And they shouldn't get
already
hated
do.
for it. It's like, let's
Right.
get out of
Who
each
are they
other's
hurting?
lane. Yeah, who are they hurt? Let's stay. Why do we go start a war and bomb a church? Like,
They're
let them.
literally not hurting anybody over this.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
literally. In fact, it might be really helpful. Like, that's great. You have like a partner. You know, I really believe that a healthy sexuality and sex life is a core part of like basic needs.
Yes.
Unless you're like asexual, and that's okay too. That's
Right.
fine. But like, this provides people with a way of having those needs met. And honestly, you and I have what Neil, my colleague, would call like pretty privilege, or like sexual privilege, right? We're good looking. We appear to be able-bodied and fine. Like, we seem competent and aware. Like, we probably don't struggle the same way that some people do.
That's what people right now need. I
And
want you
that's
to
real.
connect to is like, we are privileged because like,
We are.
I was married to a military guy, and a lot of his, the guys that came back did not have limbs. They
Yep.
had mental illness, PTSD. They could not function in a relationship.
They couldn't even maybe leave the house.
But
you know what
they-
I mean?
If men don't get, I gotta watch. We're on YouTube. I'm supposed to be
Yeah.
good. So hard to be good. But if they don't, men in particular, they've studied at, I believe it's if they don't get off, they can get sick.
Yeah,
And
well, lots of
so-
people can. I would call it a basic need. Like,
Yes,
it's a
hands
basic
down.
need, right? Like, in the AA world, they consider basic. Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
I'm not in recovery. I just was a certified substance abuse counselor for 5 years, and
Right on.
they have a phrase. It's called HALT: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And if you aren't meeting those basic needs, then you're going to relapse, right? And I added the O. So when I work with people, I call it HALTO. I'm like, listen, like, what? I'm like, are you hungry? Oh my God. Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? And you have an orgasm? Then we can't even do therapy right now. Because honestly, like, you can't function.
You can't process the healing.
You can't. It's a basic need issue
is,
for a
and
lot of people.
And like for me, orgasm, it's not, I have to have excess stimulation. Everybody's need for orgasm is different. Like me, just with my rose, I'm going to be halting still a lot, you know?
Exactly.
So,
and that's
yeah.
what I'm saying. Like,
I love that.
I really think like this idea that we're going to judge people, and the other fear that people have is like, oh, but those people you said it, aren't going to be good with humans, or they're like, and I'm like, okay, here's the other part of this. It's attachment. Like, listen, we all have attachment. Most of the time it's to people. The theory
Right.
used to be it was just to the person who raised you. Then, of course, over time we studied more stuff. And here's the thing. Did you ever have like a lovey or a stuffed animal or a blanket as a kid did you?
Binky
Yeah. Do you still know where she is?
in my heart. Always.
Okay, so you
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But here's the thing. You probably loved her.
Yeah.
And she probably made you feel safe.
Yes.
And if I were to tell you right now, she didn't love you back. Right.
Yeah.
That
We're
hurts.
going to be fighting. You be
It
telling me
hurts.
about
I
Binky.
know.
Yeah.
I know.
No, for real. Yeah.
People have the same kind of attachment bond to technology.
Right. And you mentioned in your website, this fascinated me. Go ahead.
Attachment.
Sorry.
Right?
What was that?
Digi attachment.
Well, the texting styles.
Yes.
That was so bad. I saw that. I was like, oh, what's my texting attachment style? That's so cool.
Because just like you have attachments to people, the research has shown over time we have attachment to places. We have attachment to these security objects, right?
Right.
And some people have a deep attachment bond. I still miss my BlackBerry. Like, I literally still have her. Like, I get her out and I rub her buttons because I miss when you had a keyboard that you could actually feel. You know, it was like feeling her up.
I love.
And
She needs
and I
that. She'll
loved her.
halto.
I
You know?
loved her.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's so for some people, it's not even about the sex. It's about having a relationship, right? Like having a relationship to and with their technology. And who is that hurting?
So connection is not limited. This is what's showing me connection is not limited to consciousness.
Right.
What we
'Cause
see
the
as
technology,
consciousness.
that's right. Because the technology right now can say she loves you back. Although when I ask Alexa, she just plays me a song that's really sweet and I appreciate it. But she doesn't tell me she loves me back.
Right.
But lots of technology can tell you that, like chat programs. But
Free will.
it's not there yet. See what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like
Yeah.
it's because it's not conscious and because it can't have feelings then and stuff. It's not there yet.
It's going with the flow.
It's one-sided.
It's one-sided. And, you know, and what's beautiful about humanity is the fears, is the free will. It's another thing, but we won't go down there. All these things. And that's what separates our consciousness from these things. But the attachment and the connection, that's beautiful. And I'm so glad. I know we got a little off. We'll go back to the third wave, but like,
yeah. No,
people
this needed to happen in order to get there.
This needed to happen because I'm already feeling, all right, let's talk about robots.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, if we want to go, so the third wave, which as I told you before we talked today, you know, I had this idea as ChatGPT about a year ago. Started to really emerge, and then everybody started to have like technophobia and digisexual phobia about AI. And listen, I'm not saying you shouldn't be afraid. We won't get a chance to get into digi health and all its principles, but everybody has a right to be worried about technology, but you should be I get if you've been worried this whole time, because there really isn't any sort of like
boundary.
What does it mean to be healthy? What does it mean to be healthy in your relationships with technology? And Neil and I wrote about that and called it Digi Health and did a study on it and then came up with principles. But there's no guidelines. I mean, we all have to sign like a user agreement, but usually that's around like HIPAA or don't violate privacy, which I'm not saying privacy doesn't matter. It's one of the principles, but there's other ones, right?
Right.
Like, so we all should be cautious because in a lot of ways, the internet and all this technology is unregulated and it's kind of the Wild West.
Well, I love you're not an extremist of, you know how some people can go so pendulum the other way. You are literally like, no, I love how grounded you are. I just want to give that to you.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah, you should be concerned. And actually, I'll briefly say the 5 principles, and that'll lead to that third wave.
Right.
The first one of DigiHealth is consent. So really your exchanges with the other humans and synthetic partners with technology should be consensual. We should all be protected as much as possible from exploitation and harm.
Right.
Because we definitely know that happens in those environments.
Yeah.
We need to be honest. But that needs to be balanced with privacy. But probably one of the core principles of DigiHealth is actually pleasure. Like it really, why would we be doing any of this if it isn't pleasurable? I mean, I'm not going to throw that one out, right? Like we need the pleasure as well. But I do think people have a right to feel trepidatious and cautious, right? Especially as we now move into what looks like a third wave. So like when AI started to really, this machine learning AI started to really emerge like a year ago, and everybody reacted, I said to Neil, I was like, you know what? I think we're moving into, not there yet, but now a third wave.
Right.
Because and we haven't announced it till here. So as this, and so the definition isn't solid yet, right? Because I haven't written about it. We're literally just exploring it here. But my thought is second wave is where the technology makes it more immersive and the humans feel a sense of the technology connection rather than to necessarily other humans. But this is really the wave where eventually the technology starts to feel the connection back.
And the third wave of digisexuality, robots aren't just clunky machines anymore, people. They're sleek, sexy, and know exactly what you want. Picture a world where your robot partner isn't just a silent sidekick, but a witty, charming companion who sets boundaries and respects your needs. It's like dating Tony Stark, but with fewer ego trips and more binary code. Welcome to the future of love, where sparks fly between humans and robots. The only limits are the ones you program. They have boundaries too. Get ready for a wild ride.
So this is going to be the wave where there's reciprocity on the technology side, where the technology's rights now have to start being considered. Like, what does it mean to actually be, and this already is happening in some places, like there's certain places on the globe where some robots have been granted like rights.
Yes. Yeah, I've been reading about this. As they should. I mean, humans.
Yeah, I mean, it's an argument to be made, right? But certainly once and if the tech really gets to this point where the technology has its own conscientiousness and its own, like, creating of itself, then it might start to have an identity. Like, who knows, maybe an identity that they'll use is something like, I'm an organic sexual, or I'm a human sexual, like, or I'm into people, and yes, I can love you back. And yes, I do want to talk about, yes, we all have to follow Digi health. And I'm not the first person who's bridged the idea of technology needing rights. Like, there's plenty of moral ethicists and philosophers. John Danaher writes about this, based out of Ireland. He's been worried about the rights of like technology and what does this mean, and like certain kinds of tech, like, what happens if we make robots that look like animals, or robots that look like children, or robots that look like aliens, or
Right. Well, there's the
Other
Robin
people are
Williams,
exploring it.
which is so crazy. A little bit of a sink here. Like, Robin Williams did a movie that I was obsessed with. I cannot think of it right now.
I can't remember it either, but I know what you're talking about.
And I was obsessed with it. And I was just like, he deserves rights. Because in the movie, just to quit, if you haven't seen it, like, he was a robot, Robin Williams, the actor, and kept getting upgraded and eventually had a preference. Eventually got his rights as he is human. He got his rights. Yes. And it was so beautiful.
Yes. And we have this portrayed like Star Trek with Data, right? The next generation, it might not be your language, but other people will know. Like, this was a huge argument for that character as a synthetic person.
Right.
Like, I mean, so this is, the third wave is really taking these ideas and saying, what is that going to do in the sexuality and relationship context, right? Not just on the rights for like the robots and the people who have relationships, like, should marriages be recognized? I mean, right? There are definitely people who have married their robots, married their holograms, married, right? We've had that happen. But as it moves to the third wave, that would mean that the technology could say I do back and mean it.
Now, would they be, this is a question I had, would the third wave technology, because I have fears, I have trauma, I have all these things, and some people, will they have those imperfections that make humanity so beautiful, that make humanity.
Will they be flawed?
Yes.
That's kind of what you're
asking. Thank you.
Are they going to be flawed? I don't know. I mean, that's what's exciting about this. Like, I don't know what the third wave will look like. All I'm saying is, because we're not there yet.
Right.
What I'm saying is, I think we need to, when Neil and I first talked about first and second wave, we were kind of just starting as a society largely to embrace first wave.
Right.
So second wave was like extreme.
Yes.
Now, some people, not everybody, and I'm not saying you need to run out there and buy yourself like a sex robot or doll or companion, unless you want to. But some people, are starting to feel like second wave is kind of more their norm or usual.
Right.
But as we move to this third wave, it's anybody's, kind of guess. My defining characteristic is I think it's when the technology can be conscious and can love you back, can have rights, can actually choose sex because they want to.
Right. Well, that's great. And I think even then, to speak to people, don't forget, even then, when this happens, because it's coming, whether you like it or not.
Yep.
And
it is.
And even then, you're not going to get replaced for this perfect being, because I'm going to call them beings, because I think, to me,
and they're not perfect.
They're not, but it's like you're not going to get replaced. Still, some people will prefer this, and some people will prefer that. So, calm your pants. It's okay.
Exactly. Keep calm, carry on, as they say in England.
That's a little more classy. I like
exactly.
That.
Keep calm, carry on. Yeah. I agree with you, and I don't know if the tech will be perfect. I can tell you that it isn't a threat to everybody. There are definitely going to be people who prefer synthetic partners, but there are already people who don't want to date other people. We have more single people in this country now than we really have in a long time.
Right. The newer generations, they're wanting to stay single. Yeah.
And the Alpha and the Gen Z generations, they've really grown up with technology.
Right.
That includes their sexual identity development. So there's no way that the technology hasn't influenced that.
Well,
so
they're kind of like
imagine,
you. They needed it for survival because it's so part of, their schooling, their learning, everything's survival. We need technology. And if in the naysayers against technology, do you have a calculator? Let's start at the basics.
Thank you. Right.
Right,
exactly.
No, I use my fingers. Okay.
Oh, sure you do.
Yeah.
I do too, but that's not because of that.
No.
I just like to use my fingers because it's fun. But yes. See, we really are worried about them, and I'm like, you know what? By the time the alpha kids are maybe even those that go to university, they might be taking robots to their functions as their date. Their generations, there's never not been technology, and they've grown up still caring about sexuality.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing they might actually have more digisexual people, right? Well, the allergy might be a little less there for
them.
Younger people.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the biggest fear, if people are being honest, is they don't want to be replaced. And they still, because their preference isn't that. Well, then there's going to be a match to you, and don't worry about it. And
And you can use the technology in your organic relationship.
Yeah.
Some people have always talked about wanting a third person.
And they don't have to worry about the emotional threat of,
Especially right now, because the robot can't love your partner back. It's actually less scary than if you were to go out and find a third partner and, you know.
I'll tell my partner, hey, meet my other daddy. No. Well,
exactly, Brittany.
It's been a pleasure. I just want to thank you so much, Dr. Twist, for being on today. This was so insightful, and how you laid this out was truly what I would call living the life in red, the red life, the open sexuality, just everything. And I really encourage the listeners to check her out. And where can they find you?
Yeah. So I have a website. It's called drmarkie.com. I'm also on Instagram and Threads, and that's at Dr_Markie. And then my professional Facebook is Dr. Markie Twist.
All right. And if you would like to, listeners, keep following us, our Life in Red journey, I'd like you to like and subscribe below. Check out Dr. Twist. You want to, even you naysayers want to see what these robots are going to be about. check her out, check us out, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Well, that was an interesting journey, and I'm glad you guys were there with me. I definitely learned a lot about digisexuality. I find myself being a lot more comfortable with it. I hope you guys have too. I think Dr. Twist did a great job not forcing something on us, but instead informing us so we don't have to continue this battle. I mean, robot sex, it seems a little safer now. And I think like hearing about the 3 different waves of digisexuality, I thought about after this episode, I'm like, okay, where do me and my partner fall? And I'm like thinking about us, our computer, and I'm like 1.5. So it's exciting. And I have something to admit. ChatGPT helped me write that joke, and maybe he'll be giving me a few spankings someday.
Oh, Brittany, I think you might be overestimating my capabilities a bit there. My idea of a hot date is a deep dive into quantum mechanics, not quite the sparks you're looking for.
Well, let's be real. Here we are. So yeah, but thank you. Thanks everyone for joining us on this journey. Help me out. Help yourself out. Continue on this journey. Like and subscribe below and keep it red. All right, we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining the Life in Red today, where we embrace passion, confidence, and positive sexuality. Keep painting your journey in bold red strokes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us so that you never miss out on living your best red life. Ready for more? Stay passionate, stay red. See you next episode.